Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to part 2 season 7 of What If Deku Had a Super Speed Quirk. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. As the thunder roared around them, the cloaked figure's straight right punch collided with the ground where the child had been standing and formed a large crater. The man looked down and was surprised to notice that the kid wasn't there. A few meters away, Izuku was standing there holding the young boy. Izuku set Koda down slowly to avoid hurting the young boy with his quirk. The hooded figure tossed his cloak off. Both of his arms were covered in poorly organized muscle fibers. Koda, are you all right? Izuku asked nervously. He's going to kill you. Why did you come here? Koda asked in terror. Koda, you need to get leave immediately, Izuku told him calmly as he stared the villain down. Something about the man's quirk caused Borealis to pause. The quirk seemed familiar. The green-haired boy was racking his brain as he tried to recall a news report he had seen. A smile formed on the villain's face as he looked at Izuku. The sinister smile sent a shiver down the young hero's spine. Hey kid, you wouldn't happen to know where the Pussycat Heroes are, would you? Muscular asked, still smiling. Izuku looked back and saw the young kid he had just saved was paralyzed in fear. Borealis sympathized with Koda as he felt the same way. For the first time, the green-haired boy truly understood what All Might meant. A smile formed on Izuku's face as he tried to trick the fear he felt. I'm going to take that as a no, the one-eyed villain said with a devilish grin on his face. As he charged forward, he said, don't disappoint me, kid. Show me what you've got. Borealis knew that holding back would get him killed. He also knew that he couldn't fight the villain alone. Borealis stepped to his left as he pulled out his phone to transmit his location. Muscular saw the change in direction and followed. The man had lost interest in the Koda. The blonde-haired villain noticed Izuku reaching for his phone. With a powerful leap, the villain closed the gap between them. In his haste to dodge out of the way, Izuku dropped his phone. With a powerful stomp of his right leg, Muscular broke the phone into a million pieces, and then with an evil smile he ground what remained into dust. Koda saw this display of power and ran towards Pussycat's hero agency in an attempt to get help while Izuku watched in surprise as the villain destroyed his phone. I want to enjoy this fight without any interruptions, kid, Muscular said as he started to release his bloodlust. Now that the kid is gone, you can focus entirely on me. Borealis swallowed in fear. Various pathways started to appear to him. At first, Izuku was confused by what he was seeing. As the villain prepared to attack him again, he understood. At first, each path the emerald-eyed boy saw was black. However, he kept increasing the output of his quirk until it was at max. Izuku realized he was seeing the path of least resistance. Borealis intuitively realized that the black paths meant he would face a path with the highest resistance. Izuku looked at the villain in fear as he realized he would have to stand and fight. It was the only path that didn't seem to end abruptly. The green-haired boy shifted his weight onto his right leg. He wanted the villain to think he was about to move to the right. In reality, it was only a feint. Borealis continued to stare at the man who was wearing a murderous smile. Izuku's own smile felt fragile and weak. The sound of thunder was slowly drowning out the sound of explosions in the night. The forest was set ablaze by a spark from an explosion. Terror gripped the green-haired boy as the man started to run at him. Izuku shifted his weight quickly and dodged to his left. A thunderous boom could be heard as the blonde-haired villain punched a crater into the side of the mountain. For a brief moment, dust covered the battlefield, obscuring their vision. Borealis's mind raced as he tried to figure out a way to defeat the villain. The fear Izuku felt was slowly replaced by a rush of adrenaline. Slowly, his mind focused on his need to defeat the man in front of him, and he thought of trying to flee from the fight faded into oblivion. Borealis soon realized that given his opponent's strength, staying on the defensive would keep him at a disadvantage. He had to find a way to weaken the villain. The exposed muscle fibers on the blonde-haired man's body gave Izuku an idea. If the man's quirk generated muscle fibers, that meant the villain had nerves connected to the fibers to control them, and nerves would transmit pain. The green-haired boy felt his fake smile slowly turn into a real smile. Instead of waiting for Muscular to charge at him, Borealis chose to circle the man. As carefully as Izuku could, he decreased the distance between him and the one-eyed man. The green-haired boy then attacked the villain from behind. Sensing the attack, Muscular turned around and threw a straight left punch where he expected his opponent to be. The hero in training simply stepped to his right and grabbed the villain's arm. The emerald-eyed boy used the blonde-haired man's momentum against him. Izuku pulled the man's arm farther away from his center of gravity. As Muscular lost his balance, Borealis then used his speed to throw the man into the side of the mountain. The green-haired boy eyed his opponent. The villain's smile widened as he got up. Let's see whose way of life is stronger, kid, Muscular said menacingly as his bloodlust continued to rise. That trick won't work a second time, kid, so you better not hold back. Izuku barely heard the villain over the sound of his heartbeat. Borealis didn't trust himself to respond. He was afraid the villain would notice the fear in his voice. The man's psychopathic desire to toy with his victims before killing them would only increase if he sensed that his opponent was scared. The green-haired boy readied himself for the villain's next attack. Muscular's grin slowly began to fade as he charged once again. This time the man threw a right elbow at the green-haired boy's left temple. Izuku ducked below the strike and moved to his left. Instead of moving past the villain, the green-haired hero stopped moving and kicked the villain in the knee using the side of his foot. Muscular's right knee buckled as it was pushed towards the left. As the man's right leg was forcibly turned to the left, Borealis moved away. A smile appeared on the villain's face again. The one-eyed villain thrust his right hand into his pocket. "You're pretty strong, kid," Muscular said excitedly as he rummaged around in his pocket. "But playtime is over." Several fake eyes fell from his pocket. Muscular removed his prosthetic eye with his left hand. The rummaging stopped as the villain found what he was looking for. The blonde-haired man put his right hand next to his left eye socket and inserted something into it. He lowered his right hand to reveal a blood-red eye. The muscle fibers on the villain slowly retracted back into his body. The tense atmosphere made the smile on the villain's face all the more menacing. Izuku's eyes widened in fear as all the paths turned pitch black. Out of fear, the green-haired boy activated overdrive. A green light encased Borealis as the villain bent his knees. The emerald-eyed boy watched as his opponent's body was almost instantly covered in muscle once again. This time, however, the muscle wasn't a disorganized mess. The muscle fibers coiled around the villain's body neatly. Muscular leapt forward with a surprising amount of speed. Izuku barely rolled out of the way as the villain's fist came crashing down. The force behind the punch caused cracks to form in all directions around a massive crater. Borealis stared in shock as he realized his opponent had been holding back until now. Worse, the villain's speed was comparable to his own. The green-haired boy was left speechless as he tried to figure out a way to overcome the raw power difference. Without realizing it, green lightning started to strike the area around Izuku. Borealis tried to plan out various paths he could use to attack the villain in front of him. Every path the green-haired boy thought of ended abruptly. Not giving his opponent a chance, Muscular launched himself at Izuku again. The emerald-eyed boy jumped out of the way. The one-eyed villain was ready for the move this time. The man sent a right hook straight into his opponent's left arm as the boy moved to the left. With a sickening crunch as the bones in his arm broke, Borealis was sent flying towards the side of the mountain. Izuku used his right arm to avoid crashing into the side of the mountain. Pain shot through his left arm as the green-haired boy changed his direction so he could plant his feet on the side of the mountain. Confused by the pain, Izuku looked down to see his left arm twisted at a weird angle. "He broke my arm with one strike," Izuku realized in awe. With a grimace, Borealis twisted his left arm back into its proper place so it could begin to heal. As tears of pain started to leak out of his eyes, the green-haired hero launched himself back at his opponent. As Izuku threw a straight right punch towards the villain's face, green lightning shot out his arm and started to strike the man's face. Then Izuku wedged his left hand between some of the muscle fibers on Muscular's right arm. The muscle fibers on the blonde-haired man's right arm started to burn. A loud rumble of thunder could be heard as Izuku's fist connected with Muscular's face. Dust and debris were blasted into the air as the green lightning continued to shoot from Izuku's arms and struck the ground around them. Borealis backpedaled as quickly as he could to avoid his opponent's response. Sweat was pouring down the green-haired boy's face. As the debris started to clear, Izuku saw Muscular had collapsed onto one knee. He had finally been weakened. The left side of his face was covered in burns. The villain's right arm was burned in a similar fashion. The one-eyed villain slowly got up. The smile on his face was even more terrifying. Muscular's unrelenting will forced his injured body to move. Muscle fibers slowly started to cover his arms once again. How is he still standing? I put everything I had into that attack, Izuku fearfully thought to himself as his eyes widened in shock. Are you ready for round 2, kid? That was actually pretty good, Muscular ominously said as he spit out some blood. You didn't disappoint, kid. Borealis's ears were still ringing from the thunder his quirk produced, so he barely heard the villain's words. Izuku was unable to hear the screaming voices of people telling him to hold on for just a little longer because help was on the way. Muscular paused for a second before bending his knees like he was about to leap. Back in the forest, the explosions continued. 2 girls had been separated from their classmates and were trying to rejoin them. Asui was using her frog quirk to quickly hop along the ground. Iraraka was running alongside her friend as another explosion occurred right in front of them. The scalding heat from the explosion forced the 2 girls to stop running. From their left, a small razor-sharp knife was thrown at them. Out of the corner of her eye, the green-haired girl saw the knife and tackled her friend to the ground. Her friend was about to complain when both of them heard footsteps approaching them. Both girls slowly got up as they turned towards the approaching footsteps. A blonde-haired girl about their age came skipping into view with a disappointed look on her face. The girl was twirling a small knife between the fingers of her right hand. Toga, the blonde-haired girl, looked at the 2 girls she stumbled upon and sighed. She skipped over to the tree and removed the knife that was embedded in it. As she moved past the 2 girls, they noticed she was carrying large syringes with tubes connected to them. Asui hopped away from the blonde-haired girl. Despite everything that was going on, the green-haired girl felt conflicted about fighting this strange girl. If you don't mind, could you please leave before my boss forces me to fight you? Because I really don't want to, Toga said as she started to lick her lips. Why don't you just leave if you don't want to do this? I'm sure the authorities would be willing to help if you told them what's going on, Uraraka naively said as she looked at the girl with concern. Why are you so willing to try and help me? I'm part of the group that's currently attacking you, Toga asked, surprised by the words of the brown-haired girl. It's a hero's job to help those in need. Despite being a member of the group attacking us, you don't seem happy about it, Uraraka said with concern. You seem as if you need help, so I'm trying to help. Toga simply looked at the brown-haired girl in shock for a moment. Throughout her life, she had been bullied and forced to be something she wasn't because of her blood-based quirk. Despite joining a group claiming to have the goal of creating a society where people could use their quirks freely, Toga felt left isolated by the group. The group made it clear that her only purpose was to collect other people's blood and use it to sow chaos. But that wasn't what she wanted to do. All Might made sure that his greatest rival was treated with respect after he passed away. Ribbit, Asui cautiously said as she watched the blonde-haired girl closely. If he was willing to help the greatest villain, why shouldn't we try to help you? Would you be willing to help me if you knew my quirk allows me to transform into you after I ingest some of your blood? The girl asked. Annoyed by the response, Uraraka walked closer to Toga and demanded, what does your quirk have to do with it? Your quirk doesn't define who you are. When Toga opened her mouth to respond, the brown-haired girl stared her down. The stare made the vampire girl doubt herself, but despite her doubts about the side she had chosen, Toga swung her left hand at the brown-haired girl. Uraraka stepped back while turning clockwise. The brown-haired girl then pushed Toga's left hand away from her. Asui watched the girl attacking her friend while feeling conflicted. The green-haired girl could tell by the sluggish movement of the crazy schoolgirl that Toga wasn't trying to actually hurt them. Froppy continued to watch the fight as the explosions got closer. Toga let out a sigh of frustration as she started to attack Uraraka with increased ferocity. As she looked around, she caught a glimpse of something reflecting light in the distance. The blonde-haired girl needed to make the fight look intense, otherwise her boss would simply detonate her equipment. Complicating matters for the blonde-haired girl was the fact that she didn't want to hurt the two girls. In between the explosions, the three girls could hear the constant rumbling of thunder. Sweat started to drip down Uraraka's face as she tried to avoid getting stabbed. Each time the blonde girl attacked her, Uraraka was pushed back even farther. Despite all of her effort to become a better fighter, she was being pushed back by an opponent who wasn't even trying. The zero-gravity girl had a flashback to the sports festival where she had felt useless. The frown on her face was a manifestation of her frustration. For the first time, Uraraka wished that she had asked her teachers for extra combat lessons. Using the knife in her right hand, Toga attempted to stab the brown-haired girl in the left shoulder. Despite the yellow-haired girl's slow attack, Uraraka stumbled backwards as she tripped over a tree root. Before the blade could make contact, a tongue wrapped around Toga's right arm. Asui then threw the girl into the trunk of a nearby tree. As much as the green-haired girl wanted to help the girl attacking them, she knew her classmate was in trouble. Froppy paused as a drone started to fly closer to them. At first, she didn't think anything of it, but then she noticed the look of terror on Toga's face. Realizing that her life was in danger, Toga threw one of her knives at the girls. Uraraka rolled out of the way of the incoming knife. Asui simply jumped away from the path of the knife. Both girls grew more concerned as they heard the thunder getting louder. When Froppy turned her head in the direction of the thunder, Toga saw this opening and lunged at her. I hope one of your friends isn't over there, because a villain called Muscular was heading in that direction and he enjoys torturing people before he kills them, Toga taunted as she slashed at Asui's face. Do you love anyone? Between the increase in the volume of the thunder and Toga's taunting, Asui reacted a fraction of a second too slowly, and Toga's knife made a shallow horizontal cut across the bridge of her nose. Blood spurted from the wound and coated the tip of the knife that Toga held in her left hand. The blonde-haired girl looked down at her knife sadly. For her, this didn't feel like something Stain would do. Stain hunted fake heroes, not true heroes like the two girls standing in front of her. Have you ever loved someone so much that you wanted to be them? The blonde-haired girl asked. Why be someone else when you could just be yourself, Ribbit? Asui curiously asked. Why be something you're not, Ribbit? Toga's jaw dropped as she swung her knife at the green-haired girl. Her blood boiled at the fact that she had to attack these girls. The yellow-haired girl grabbed one of her syringes in her right hand. Toga continued to swing the knife in her left hand wildly. She was trying to distract her opponents from the weapon she used to acquire someone's blood. Asui noticed that despite her opponent's wild swings, the attacks always missed by a wide margin. At that exact moment, a rumble of thunder was so loud that it covered up the sound of the explosions. Then, for a moment, both the explosions and the thunder ceased. Dust covered a portion of the mountain. Toga stopped swinging at the green-haired girl as it became eerily silent. For a moment, the blonde-haired girl thought that Muscular had been defeated. Toga quickly quashed that thought. She watched as something leapt away from the mountain. The drone hovered in the air for a few moments before self-destructing. "Get out of here, please," Toga pleaded with her opponents as she realized she was about to be killed. "The group I work with doesn't care about individual lives. It only cares about its goal." Sui was about to ask what the blonde girl was talking about. Then it hit her like a ton of bricks. The green-haired heroine couldn't believe that a group would simply kill off one of its own to achieve its goals. Froppy hopped over to her friend as quickly as possible in an attempt to move her out of the blast radius. Unbeknownst to the three girls, a man with glowing yellow eyes had been observing their fight from a short distance away. Kurogiri's eyes narrowed as his left hand dissolved into a mist ready to form into a portal. For him, the fight took an unexpectedly dark turn. The yellow-eyed man grimaced as he felt bad for the blonde-haired girl. Froppy reached her friend as the gear that was wrapped around Toga acquired a yellow glow. Uraraka quickly used her quirk on her friend to remove the effects of gravity so she could move Asui more easily. Tears started to roll down the girls' faces as they moved away from their opponent. Realizing the girls wouldn't get away from the explosion fast enough, Kurogiri opened a portal in front of them. Without realizing it, Uraraka and Asui stepped through the portal. They were instantly transported to the mountain where some of the pro heroes had gathered. The first thing they saw was their friend Izuku passed out on the ground. His left arm was an odd purple color and his right arm was covered in severe burns. Their attention quickly shifted to the sound of a large explosion where they had been fighting. A series of explosions soon followed. Uraraka broke into tears as the shockwave from the first explosion hit them. The shockwave wave was strong enough to force everyone to take a step back. Asui tried to comfort her friend as she watched the fire starting to spread in the forest. The green-haired girl hoped that the girl they had fought had somehow survived the explosion. It suddenly dawned on her that she didn't remember hopping up the mountain. It took Froppy a second to realize that she and Asui had passed through a strange purple cloud as they arrived on the mountain. In the forest, Kurogiri exited from a purple mist once the explosion died away. A massive crater was left in the ground. Trees had been ripped out of the ground from the force of the explosion. As the man with yellow eyes got closer, he noticed some of the trees had been blown to bits. The once moss-covered area was now covered in ash from the explosion. As he stepped down into the crater, he found the yellow-haired girl lying at the bottom. Toga was bleeding heavily from multiple spots on her body while a pool of blood was forming around her. Burns covered her body as Kurogiri gently opened a portal beneath her. With all of the delicacy he could muster, he slowly dropped her into the portal. For some reason, this reminded him of the attack on USJ. The yellow-eyed man narrowed his eyes as he decided to think about that subject later. For now, he would hope that he had made it in time to save the girl's life. Once Toga had disappeared into his portal, Kurogiri opened a portal for himself. With an inaudible sigh, he disappeared into the portal. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We The Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We The Celestials, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, we're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So, thank you all for watching, and have a great day.